don't be oblivious. The fact that you've got a foot in the door doesn't mean you're guaranteed success. 'Cause we be on a tough love. Oh, we feeling so high. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kinsani and I bring you faith, education, wisdom, and lifestyle content. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Today's guest is very special. Her reputation precedes her. The brand. And I've heard a lot about her from people, and after that I was like, I have to follow her, I have to stalk her. And also, this is just a heads up, guys, like if you really are inspired by people, to shoot your shot. So yeah, let me just do a brief intro of her. Her name is Phetheni Nkuna. She is a director in employment law at a big firm. She holds a LLB, LLM, a certificate in advanced labor law, and studying towards her Master of Business Administration with GIBS. Welcome, Phetheni.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such an honor to have you.
I think the honor is in us having conversation. I'm actually honored to be sitting here and having conversations, really.
I'm so glad. Thank you. So I thought before, because like everyone will just be awed by your bio, you should tell us a bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you ended up in the legal fraternity or doing law.
Jeez. There's always such a long story. So I'm the fifth of 6 kids. Well, at least we were 6 until August. I lost my brother, who was also doing his final year in LLB. So 3 girls, 3 boys. And my mother was a teacher. She's retired. And my father was an attorney.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I come from that lineage of attorneys, because also there's a grandfather who's a retired magistrate. So, yes. So me studying law really was my father's choice. Yeah, my father just one day said, "You're going to do LLB." Next thing I knew, my father and my brother, the one who's late, had applied for me at the University of Limpopo. And they're like, "Listen, registration is in 2 weeks, pack your bags." So I just packed my bags. I went to Turfloop. And I think the first sign that I was in the right space was, I've always been a nerd, so people say, but I got an award for top student first year. And it kind of did away with every doubt I had. It was almost a moment of reassurance. You are in the right field. And then, yes, I did my LLB. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 3rd year. And
I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you. And then in 3rd year, I applied for articles in one of the big firms, as they call them. And I was accepted. And ironically, I was actually the first one from the University of Limpopo, yes, to be accepted.
Interesting.
And yes, I started then my articles in 2013. And as they say, the rest is history. My academics, coming from that background, having a mother who's a teacher, I was 16 in matric. So you can imagine, I was a little baby when I started articles. Sure. I always laugh and say I paid for my 21st party with my salary. And yes, I then went on to do my master's in labor law with the University of Pretoria. And after that, I then did an advanced certificate in labor law. And then I did my master's. And then I was like, so what next? Seriously, just like that. So what next? Then I just come across, an MBA wouldn't be so bad. Then I applied, GIBS accepted me. I did my Post Graduate Diploma, because it's a 2-year program. You first do your PG Dip, which is the first year, and then the MBA core is actually 2nd year. So I'll be done at the end of October.
Wow.
It's been such a journey. Yeah, so that's me, really. That's me.
Wow.
I'm shy. Contrary to what people see out there, I'm shy. I like closed spaces. Yeah, I like to be away from camera lights and action. That's just me.
You know, I'd like to believe that, but for someone with your reputation and the amount of work you've done, I'm just like, she cannot be shy.
Thank you.
Also, I just had, why labor law?
I remember in my first year of articles, I'll not forget this guy, Floyd Silimo. He was a senior associate and he practices mining law. I went to him, I was like, Floyd, I really, really want to do mining law, but where's the opportunity for me? Can you put in a word for me? And I will not forget his words. Floyd looked at me and said, sit down. So I was in his office. He says to me, sit down. He says, don't push it. Law will find you. And
good.
honestly, I had no idea that one day I'd be a labor/employment law practitioner. And in my second rotation, because we do 2 years, we did 2 years of articles, 3 rotations. My second year, my second rotation, I went to labor law. And then I moved to projects in energy. A month in, I was told to go back to employment law. And that's where I was retained. And many years on, I'm an employment lawyer.
I think, guys, I'm a bit stunned. You'll see this throughout the entire video because I had a telephone discussion with Pheteni during the week and I was awed. So you'll see a lot of me being just like, wow. But you said something that law will find you. I think that's so profound because
It is.
you know, as we come out of varsity, we don't know what it is we want to do in law. And we're just thrown into the space where you have to decide what it is, or you'll find out as the journey proceeds, you know. So I think that is a very good thing to say.
It was such a pivotal moment because, again, as you say, I come out of varsity. I've got this obsession with mining law. I think I'm going to be a mining lawyer. You know, that's why I went to him. I was like, Floyd, listen, I know you've got the ear of the sheriff in town in this field. Please put in a good word for me. And shame, he didn't close the door on me, but he was like, I need you to sit down and listen to what I'm going to say. And when he said law will find you, it didn't make sense at that moment because, I mean, I want you to tell me that you'll speak for me, you'll say something. You know, again, we're under this pressure to get things done in that moment. Sometimes we become so anxious, we don't want to live through the process. And yes, it found me. Again, there's also risk in that because you may say it will find you only for you to just go with the waves. But after that, I was very intent. I remember my father would always say, if you don't put yourself 100% even to the smallest things, trust me, you'll never be good enough for the big stage. So I was so intent that as I'm going into this employment law rotation, I will make a mark. And I did. And then I was asked to come back. And yes, many years later, I'm there.
I love that about being intentional. And firstly, when you said, I believe you are intentional because you went to Floyd and said, you know what, this is what I want.
Yes.
Imagine being in a big space like that as a candidate attorney to first say, you know what, speak for me. This is who I am. This is what I want. So I really believe that you are an intentional person, and intention is very important in the workspace.
It's also about survival. You know, don't be oblivious. The fact that you've got a foot in the door doesn't mean you're guaranteed success. I was there. I had articles in third year varsity already, and I was in a big firm. You know, I could have easily sat back and thought, "Oh, fate." I could have easily sat back and said, "No, the Lord will make it right." But I believe in faith with actions.
Amen.
You know, and I said to myself, "I'm going to stand up. I am going to find those opportunities." And I did. I was very intent, even though, yes, it wasn't a green light into mining law, but he gave me something better. He gave me so much better. I actually got to, I pulled back, not pulling back from the work, but I pulled back. And I was like, there's actually so many other fields of law And I'm not opening my mind to those because I'm so focused on this one field of law. And it was such a beautiful moment. I realized that, damn it. And I always say this to CAs who are part of my team in their rotations. I say, listen, whether it works out within those 4 corridors or not, it doesn't diminish the light in you. Just because you don't make it big in here doesn't mean you're useless. I know profound lawyers who've made it out there.
So good.
You may not get retained, but it doesn't mean it's the end for you.
True. Thank you for that message. Today's focus actually is on unfair discrimination in the workspace, with a particular focus on candidate attorneys or the legal fraternity. But I do believe that these issues apply in other fields as well, other industries, other professions. So I mean, we've already gotten into some aspects of this from what we've spoken about, but because you are a specialist in labor law, employment law, what is unfair discrimination?
So really, unfair discrimination is about unequal treatment, disparity, unequal treatment, unequal opportunities. Where it comes from is trying to redress the injustices of apartheid. We've got our employment equity legislation, which really turns the focus onto persons from the designated group and categorically referred to as the black people. Now that would be me and you, black by our skin color. It's Indians as well as coloreds. And it also adds women across the race, because women have historically only been meant for the kitchen. You find your place in the kitchen. So it's trying to expose us to opportunities, expose us to distribution of wealth, expose us to participation in leadership in academics. That's really what it's about. And where that balance is compromised, then comes in discrimination. Discrimination is not always unfair. That's very important. I mean, I always use something so simple. Yes, the dynamics are changing, but we've got restrooms for males and females. When you look at that on the surface, it's discriminatory in nature.
Yes.
But when you look at the justification, preservation of dignity, I, for one, wouldn't feel comfortable walking into a unisex bathroom. I want my space, I'm a woman. The things that I need to go and so there are many considerations. But obviously there is conduct that is really unacceptable and cannot be justifiable. And that becomes unfair discrimination, which is dealt with in the Employment Equity Act. Now, unfair discrimination is not just differentiating between me and you because of my gender, my sex, my color, my education, my origin. It's wide enough. It includes the phrase on any arbitrary ground. So even if it's not listed there, if it's arbitrary,
really?
yes, if it's arbitrary, it does amount to unfair discrimination. Interestingly, we saw an amendment that then introduced sexual harassment as a form of discrimination based on gender. So it's quite a wide, I always say, we need that kind of legislation that is all encompassing, because some things are so intangible and you fail to articulate them, but it's wide enough. It covers that, and it also sets out what remedies are available to you if you believe that you've been unfairly discriminated against. Importantly as well, do not just claim that you're being unfairly discriminated against. And this really goes to, we've seen a lot of my boss is racist. Before you make that statement, because it is derogatory, and to accuse somebody, I mean, we have a sensitive history as society, and to just say somebody is racist, trust me, you need to have interrogated it. You need to be sure of what you're saying, and you need to have tangible proof of what you mean to support your statements. Yes.
I have quite a few things to ask. You've mentioned so many things. Firstly, so if I want to prove that my boss is racist, because it's very difficult, you don't know what what racism basically looks like in the workspace. Let's say me and you are candidate attorneys. If I'm constantly being given, just make copies, some research work here and there, and then another one is being given the real work, the drafting, the go to court, the real experience. Could I look at that from a race perspective if I was black and you were white?
Not automatically.
Okay.
You can't just say it's racism just because there is that difference in treatment, so to say. Again, this term racism is such a difficult term because it's very abstract. What you often find in the workplace is discrimination based on race, not racism. So yes, semantics, but they're very important because you then say, I am being discriminated against, and this is what discrimination looks like on the basis of my race or my gender. So that is the employment law distinction or definition. Yes, we've had racism, which often comes from, we've had, I will not mention people by name, but we've seen people being called the K word, being called the K word insofar as black people are concerned, the K word insofar as Indian people are concerned. Yes, we've had a lot of that on social media as well. Again, be very careful what you post on social media. And we've had a lot of those, and those have translated into racism. But when you talk about the example you're giving, I would classify it as, I am being discriminated against on the basis of my race.
Wow.
And then obviously you have to put your money where your mouth is. You can't just make allegations.
Wow, so good. I mean, it's for so many people, including myself, I would look at it from it's racism rather than I'm being discriminated on the basis of race. So you are teaching us a lot of things, actually. Like for many candidate attorneys, for many people in different industries, now we see that actually when things like this happen, we don't only need to just be, we need to do our research, or we need to be very attentive to what's happening, and then before we can allege that it's racism or anything like that. You also spoke of harassment, and oh gosh, from people I've interacted with, some of them your friends, I've heard so many stories when they were candidate attorneys of sexual harassment, and I mean, these are young women who come into this legal fraternity. They are vulnerable, they're very young. And then the space is meant to be safe for them because it's training. It's still training, and then there's some...
That unfortunate incident.
Yes, that unfortunate incident. And I thought you'd get us into how does one go about reporting that?
Sexual harassment is a very sensitive and complex topic, and I often say for my sins, I find myself dealing with a lot of employment equity disputes related to that. Sure. I've investigated, and just in the work I do, I'm not talking about in my firm, but in the work that I do. So it's across industries, sure. And that's what's very sad. It's across industry. It's not just unique to the legal fraternity. So to say, I often advise my clients that, listen, pay attention, have clear policies. Yes, we have the code of good practice on the handling of sexual harassment in workplaces. And that being said, if a policy is not being implemented, it's just words on paper and meaningless. True. So as an employer, you need to be making people aware. Something as simple as whistling when I pass is actually sexual harassment, and I find a lot of males. I've facilitated webinars on this, speaking about sexual harassment, employment equity, and they're like, huh? Really, I've had somebody pose a question from the gallery saying to me, but in my culture, siyangoma intombazane, we compliment a woman who looks good. And I've had to say, listen, culture, everyone has a right to practice their culture, but there's a limitation clause.
So good.
Do not infringe on my rights to privacy, to dignity, because I also appreciate that you can practice your culture, but certain things have to have limits. So again, there's a lot of unawareness of what is actually sexual harassment. Asking me out on a date, pestering me for drinks, sending me funny WhatsApp messages. It often starts with teasers, touching me on my shoulder. We're working on something and you're like leaning on my shoulder. You're smelling my perfume and you're complimenting. I've heard stories, and it's frightening. And I've been fortunate enough as a woman to get in, and they often land on my desk, and I've had to interrogate the issue. I've had to help clients resolve this. And what's even more sensitive is that it's not just an act of misconduct in the workplace. It's somebody's life. I've seen what it does to the victim. The emotions, the outlook of your future. I've heard stories of my peers who've said, listen, I am leaving practice. I will find a job somewhere. I'm okay.
So it's now it's not just an infringement of privacy and dignity, but then you are infringing on my right to practice or to trade, and just so many violations in terms of the Constitution, just based on sexual harassment.
Yes. And on the question that you asked earlier about reporting, I will take it for granted that firms have evolved. They have functioning HR departments. If there isn't an HR department that is functional, find somebody you can talk to as a senior. Lodge a grievance. Tell them what is happening. Ask that it be taken forward. But I'll speak from my environment. We have an HR policy, we have an HR department, and these things are taken seriously. They are so serious. It's not just about violation, it also goes to transformation. Imagine if I suffer that and then I leave. It means my firm has lost a black young female practitioner. It's about transformation as well. It's about it's so much more. And I believe that it needs to start with education, go to implementation of policies. When we see you doing something, we have confidence that when we report these kind of violations, you will do something.
You will do something about it. And I mean, in a country where gender-based violence is so high, implementation of the laws is like the one thing we need. We need law enforcement to actually do their job. But you also said something about if there's no HR in let's say in the firm, and now I'm a new candidate and I can't trust anyone. I can't just go now and report and say that, because I don't know if, let's say it's a firm of men, how they've been protecting each other throughout the years. So if this is happening where they're not aware all along about one of their partners being like this, for example, so I'm just worried about the trust that you must have to report such a big issue, because this comes with a lot. There's reputation, there is, who do you think you are? You just arrived at this firm, and then for the first time we hear you reporting somebody for sexual harassment. Are you? And then there's questions: are you here to ruin people's careers or whatever? Those kind of things. So I am very concerned about spaces where you're unfortunate, like very small firms, to have an HR department, and everyone in that firm is more like they know each other, they protect each other. Yes.
That's really unfortunate, hey? Because I also do mentoring, and I mentor across different sizes of firms. I have mentees who are in small firms. I have mentees who are in big firms, and I see from a bird eye view the difference, that we've got a functioning HR, we've got IT, we've got other firms don't have those resources. That being said, geez, it's always so complex because someone will say, I will resign. The moment you resign, don't quote me on this, but that can actually be seen as constructive dismissal, because you had no choice but to resign because of the treatment. There's also the avenue of lodging an unfair discrimination dispute, and because harassment is a form of discrimination. So those are some of the things that are available to you. But yes, if really there are no structures like that, it goes to mental wellness as well. I wouldn't advise you to stay in that kind of environment, because God forbid if something worse was to happen to you, or you suffer depression because of that.
Thank you for raising that.
Yeah, so it's really, it's not just a one thing, it affects so many other things.
Thank you for raising that. Now I'm seeing how broad employment law is. Hey?
It is. I enjoy it.
So broad.
I always say I do law of the people.
And you're right. On the phone, I was like, we're going to do restraints of trade. I had ideas, like we're going to talk about this and this and that. We could have talked about trade unions. And she was like, Kenzani, calm down. Relax, baby girl. This is so broad. Unfair discrimination is so broad. And you are literally teaching us so much about it.
It is broad.
And I'm thinking, before we end off the video, I want us to get into discrimination based on gender and what it looks like, or how it actually plays out. We spoke about how it's easier for women to rise up if they are not married, if they don't have kids, those kind of things. We see it a lot in law firms. So can you just help us through that?
Again, the dynamics vary from environment to environment. It's not in all fairness, we can't say all firms are the same. Yeah, we can't. It will be just unfair, because I've seen from my firm as well, I've seen how much effort is being made. For example, when I lost my brother, it was such a hard moment for me, and I had a practice to go on, and I always call him my boss, because for my entire career, he's always been my director, and he's been my sponsor as well. And he helped me through the transition. He helped me manage it. He surrounded me with a team to support me so that I don't fall behind, firstly, as a professional, because one thing I respect about him is he sees me as a professional before he sees me as a woman. So to surround me with that support, and then obviously check in on me, how you doing? When do you think you can get back into it? It's fine, take your time. And that being said, I've also heard of the unfortunate incidents, not in my firm, but I interact with people. I mingle, and as we're chatting, as we're catching up, house practice, people tell you all sorts of horrific stories of how my articles were compromised when I fell pregnant, how I wasn't promoted to senior associate because I had a child, how I was told or treated as if me getting married was a career limiting move. I've heard those kind of stories, and I didn't experience them personally. Well, I don't have a child, I'm not married, but I'm not saying that it doesn't exist or it doesn't happen, because I've heard stories. That being said, it's very important for firms as employers to be proactive, because we may all hold LLB degrees, but we're not the same. My journey as a woman is different from my counterpart who's a male, and so is what I prefer, what I don't prefer, and firms need to be alive to that in order to support women. The moment she gives birth, comes back, can you please just help with the transition? Can you please not deny her the promotion just because she chose to have a child? What are you saying, that we can't reproduce so that we can be weighed equally with our male counterparts? I mean, that's infringing on my reproductive health. So firms
on a
need
constitutional right.
Yes, firms need to come to the party, and I've been fortunate enough to have seen firms that I've been with coming to the party, offering that support. There is sponsorship, there is mentoring, there is substantive transformation, and it goes beyond just being a pretty face, being a black face, but it does happen, and it's very unfortunate, and I've heard about it.
So wow, Pheteni, I told you guys that today I'll just be like, wow. But what I heard is that we really need to create a space that accommodates both genders.
Yes.
We cannot look at this from one spectrum that,
Yes.
you know what, once women choose to have children or choose to exercise their birthrights, then they should be sidelined in their careers. Guys, in today's video, our focus was on unfair discrimination in the workspace, with a particular focus on what it looks like in the legal fraternity. But from what Phetheni has shared with us, guys, you can clearly, I'm certain that it applies across all professions and industries. The one thing that I got from Phetheni is that there has to be transformation. Discrimination has a lot to do with not wanting to exercise or implement transformation in the workspace. We spoke about harassment, about gender, about discrimination on the basis of race, and she gave us a brief of who she is. And guys, I am totally awed and totally grateful that you gave your time to come and share your knowledge. And as usual, a candidate who wants to do employment law, guys, I want to do employment law after this video. This is your girl. You can just follow her. She's on IG. I will leave the link down there. Guys, shoot your shots. This is my message today. Shoot your shots. And thank you.
Thank you
goodbye.
for having me.